Prime Minister Mark Carney will be at the summit tomorrow. Obviously, he'll be talking about trade with the U.S. What are you hoping to hear from him?
I'm hoping that we can all contribute to the path forward that means the least tariffs, ideally no tariffs, as quickly as possible.
The headlines are loud. Tariffs are coming. August 1st is the deadline. Canada and the United States are scrambling to reach a new trade deal. Steel, autos, agriculture, they dominate every headline. But in the middle of this storm, something's missing from the conversation. Something big. Energy. Canada's most vital export to the U.S. And yet, it's barely being mentioned. No press briefings, no public threats, no leaks. And in a negotiation as high stakes as this one, that kind of silence is never accidental.
I think Donald Trump is feeling pretty cocky right now, full of himself. Thinks he's got everybody coming to him. I'm going to actually say Canada's imports of softwood lumber or steel or whatever are a national security threat, and I'm going to put more tariffs on. So,
as of now, most Canadian goods face a 25% tariff under the Trump administration's 2025 trade directive. On August 1st, that could rise to 35%. But energy, including oil, uranium, LNG, and hydropower, has stayed at 10%. It's one of the few categories that hasn't been pulled into the tariff crossfire. There's been no official announcement placing energy on or off the negotiating table. And yet, both countries are acting as if it's too sensitive to touch. For now. This silence is drawing attention because it suggests something deeper. Not that energy is off limits, but that it may be too valuable to risk in early talks. If this trade fight is a high-stakes game, then energy might just be the strongest card Canada holds. And that's exactly why it isn't being played. From Washington's side, touching Canadian energy too aggressively could backfire. The United States imports nearly 95% of its uranium, with Canada as its top secure supplier. That uranium feeds the country's nuclear reactors that are about to power a surge in AI-related data centers and clean energy grids. From Ottawa's side, making energy an early bargaining chip could invite dangerous demands. The Trump administration has already pushed for more access to Canada's telecom, banking, and agriculture sectors. Why give them a reason to ask for more? So instead of putting energy on the table, both sides are quietly leaving it just under it.
And then we're also looking to extend natural gas access into New Brunswick and support some of the assets that we have, like our LNG plant and our port in St. John that moves a lot of energy product. Mm-hmm. We also have critical mineral projects that contribute to Canada's defense.
While the federal government stays quiet, Canada's provinces are preparing the ground. In New Brunswick, Premier Susan Holt is pushing the Eastern Energy Partnership, a multilateral grid plan linking LNG, nuclear, and wind from Quebec to the Atlantic coast. St. John's Port is being upgraded, and new pipelines are under discussion to connect Western gas to Eastern export routes. Meanwhile, Saskatchewan is solidifying its role as a strategic uranium hub. Ontario is focusing on EV supply chains powered by domestic energy sources. None of these moves are explicitly linked to U.S. talks. But taken together, they form a clear pattern. Provinces are ensuring that if energy enters the trade equation, they'll be ready to use it on Canada's terms. Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to join Canada's premiers this week in Huntsville. The focus will be U.S. trade, and the political stakes couldn't be higher. But barring a breakthrough, it's unlikely the final deal will be free of tariffs. More likely is a partial agreement, one that accepts tariffs on sectors like steel or telecom, while keeping energy untouched. Not as a gift, but as a calculated exchange. And if there's no deal by August 1st, then energy will become even more critical, not in speeches, but in supply chains, export routes, and quiet retaliatory decisions. Because sometimes the most powerful card in a negotiation is the one you never show.
So many issues involve U.S.-Canada relationships that it's like shooting your sibling in the heart. I can't believe we're doing what we're doing.
Tariffs are tools. But in today's trade war, they've become something more. Symbols of disruption, wielded personally by Donald Trump. This latest escalation didn't come from Beijing or Brasilia. It came from Washington. And it wasn't aimed at rivals, but at Canada. For decades, the United States and Canada weren't just trading partners. They were collaborators in manufacturing, in defense, in shaping the global economy. Now, that foundation is cracking. And for the first time, the pushback is coming not just from Ottawa, but from Washington insiders themselves. Carla Hills, who once led America's NAFTA negotiations, is sounding the alarm. Not with politics, but with history. Because what's happening now isn't just a trade dispute. It's a breakdown, triggered by Trump, but felt across borders.
You make of Trump issuing this tariff threat in the middle of trade talks? Things look to be going in the right direction. It seems like there was some positive signals being sent. Now he's just dumped this on us.
Trump's tariff-first approach has left allies scrambling. And among those most concerned are the very people who once helped build the North American trading system. Carla Hills, former U.S. trade representative, isn't known for dramatic language, but even she has called the situation a self-inflicted wound, comparing it to turning on your own sibling. For her, the damage isn't abstract, it's operational. Cross-border supply chains, especially in autos and manufacturing, rely on predictability. Trump's surprise escalations are replacing that with chaos. Planning has become guesswork. From small businesses in Michigan to parts manufacturers in Ontario, firms are holding back on hiring, investing, and signing long-term contracts. And the economic toll is measurable. A Yale study in July 2025 projected the disruption could cut Canada's GDP by 2.1% and cost American households over $2,500 annually due to inflation. Trump promised control. What businesses got was confusion.
What I wanted to emphasize today is, as Minister in charge of industries and of the economy, is we are not alone in this world. We need to be closer to our allies.
Instead of reacting emotionally, Canada is shifting strategically and sending a message that it won't wait for Trump's mood to change. Just weeks before the latest escalation, Prime Minister Carney signed a new agreement with the European Union. More than a trade deal, it includes coordination on industrial policy, defense, and strategic industries. This wasn't a press stunt, it was a pivot. And while Carney keeps negotiations private, Industry Minister Melanie Joly has taken the lead in economic diplomacy. Her approach is quiet but pointed. Canada is protecting jobs not through retaliation, but through realignment. Under CETA, trade with the EU continues to expand. And Joly is working to accelerate full ratification across Europe, even as 10 member states have yet to finalize the agreement. Her message is simple. Trump may be closing doors, but Canada is opening others. The longer Trump leans into unpredictability, the more Canada leans out. What began as a dispute is fast becoming a divorce. Ottawa is meeting with Berlin, Brussels, and Paris, building alternative supply chains and co-investment pathways that exclude the U.S. And the U.S. isn't just losing trade, it's losing credibility. Veteran negotiators like Hills have warned that leadership is about consistency, but Trump's tariff policy has been anything but. And with each new escalation, that inconsistency drives partners further away. Canada isn't just adjusting, it's repositioning structurally and strategically for a post-Trump economic landscape. Trade is more than numbers, it's trust. And once that trust is broken, through chaos, threats, or shifting rules, rebuilding it isn't simple. Trump may see tariffs as leverage, but his former allies now see them as warnings. Canada is adapting. Europe is welcoming. And if this trend holds, Trump's greatest legacy may not be manufacturing revival, but the fragmentation of a continent-spanning alliance.
With the trade war between Canada and the United States causing economic uncertainty, Canadian leaders are looking to Asia and Europe for reliable trade partners.
European negotiators say trade between the U.S. and EU could be effectively cut off if Trump goes ahead with a 30% tariff that he threatened over the weekend.
America's global influence was built not just on military power, but on long-standing partnerships, especially in trade. Today, that foundation is starting to break. If President Trump continues to raise tariffs on key allies, the United States risks more than short-term retaliation. It could lose its central role in the global economy. Canada is shifting its trade strategy. The European Union is preparing to strike back. And together, these moves are showing that the world may be ready to move on without U.S. leadership.
The deals are made. There are no deals to make. They would like to do a different kind of a deal, and we're always open to talk. We are open to talk, including to Europe. If in fact they're coming over, they'd like to talk.
President Trump believes that high tariffs will force other countries to accept better trade terms. But if those countries decide to stop relying on the U.S. altogether, the result could be long-term damage. When global supply chains adjust, the changes are not easily reversed. Companies may move production away from North America. Trade flows may shift permanently. Key U.S. industries, like finance, pharmaceuticals, and technology, could face new restrictions and rising costs in foreign markets. And once trading partners begin to rely less on U.S. systems, including the dollar and American tech platforms, the U.S. risks being left out of decisions that shape the global economy. The European Union is treating Trump's tariffs not just as an economic threat, but as a strategic rupture. Officials in Brussels say a 30% tariff on EU goods could effectively wipe out transatlantic trade. According to the European Commission, the U.S. imports more than $600 billion annually from the EU, while exporting only $370 billion. At first, the EU held back, pausing a $25 billion countermeasure package to allow for dialogue. But they've already prepared a larger $72 billion retaliation if talks collapse. Their strategy is twofold: de-escalate if possible, but punish if necessary. What's notable isn't just the scope of the response. It's the areas being targeted, U.S. services like finance and tech, where retaliation would hurt most.
Last month, you look at the data from Statistics Canada, which looks at the month of May, and we saw the highest amount of merchandise exports to non-U.S. countries since at least 2021.
Canada's response has been quieter, but no less consequential. After Trump's tariff announcement, exports to the U.S. dropped sharply. In May 2025, Statistics Canada reported just $41 billion in exports to the U.S., a 25% decline from January. Meanwhile, exports to non-U.S. countries rose to $19 billion, the highest since 2021. Canada is redirecting gold to the UK, oil to Singapore, pharmaceuticals to Italy. More than that, Canada is reopening dialogue with India, despite political tension. For Alberta and Saskatchewan, accessing India's pulse crop market is critical. This isn't just diversification, it's a structural shift. Prime Minister Mark Carney isn't threatening countermeasures. He's methodically building an economy that no longer depends on the U.S., a move supported by both policy and public sentiment. Trump's strategy is clear. He believes pressure forces deals. But pressure without flexibility can create fractures. The EU isn't folding, Canada isn't waiting. And if Trump continues down this path, America may win a few concessions, but lose the cohesion that once made it powerful. In trying to maximize leverage, Washington could undermine its own role in global leadership. Allies won't leave in anger. They'll simply move on, with new partners, new trade routes, and a future that no longer revolves around the U.S. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. Trump's tariff play may feel strong in the short term, but the long game is different. And as Canada restructures and Europe prepares its counterpunch, one reality grows clearer. The world won't wait for America to lead. Not if it keeps pushing them away.